Hi, welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute since I last recorded something. I think my last one was a reading vlog, and it was actually a readathon. And since then, a lot has happened. I took a long break and went to India. Now that I'm back, I wanted to show you some books that I got from India. So yeah, it's a book haul. I want to give a disclaimer. I am not the one to go and do huge book hauls. I don't buy a lot of books at once, but this is an exception. It's like stocking up your pantry with essentials. I want to really focus on reading a lot of Indian authors and local stories from India. My first instinct was to look up my library and the thrift stores around, the secondhand bookstores and online bookstores like Thrift Books, where you can get secondhand books. But sadly, I couldn't find most of the books that I wanted to. Maybe they are available now, but not back then. And also sometimes I feel that some stories are so local that unless you go to a bookstore and browse, you don't even find those books online. And that is why I ended up buying a lot of books. When I buy books in India, they are a lot cheaper just because of the exchange rate of the currency. I did not buy any pirated books. Today was a very slow Saturday. I also went to the library and I got 3 books. Maybe I can talk about those 3 books in a different video, but they were good finds. This video is going to be a mix of haul and review. I've already read some books that I got. I quickly want to also review those books, and then we will move on to the books that I haven't read. The first book is The Battle of Hajipir by Kulpreet Yadav. The author of this book is an ex-army official. In August 1965, 30,000 militant infiltrators, they crossed the Indian borders and attacked civilians and different army personnels, and that is the reason India had to go to war with one of its neighboring countries. This battle is called the Indian Army's cross-border surgical strike. No war has a happy ending, but this one specifically was an important war for India. Now, whenever I read anything related to army of any country, and especially India, it really hits hard. I cannot help but be grateful for everything that the army, the navy or the air force personnel, they sacrifice. It's just because of these sacrifices that we are able to live the life that we live in all this comfort. Now, this was a gripping read. I read this on my flight from India to US. It is almost a 24-hour journey, and I hardly slept on that flight. This book is super well researched and it reads like a movie. It's like you're watching a movie and you want to know what's next. The author has made sure that they stick to the facts. The book is well researched, and if you go and find out on the internet, it's not like the book is dramatized. Also, the author has mentioned in the beginning that just to make sure that this book is easy for non-army folks to read, certain scenes in a few places have been recreated with the help of dialogues. And also, the dialogues are not just the brainchild of the author. These dialogues have been reconstructed using information that's in public domain, like public interviews, official documents that are made public, and the logical suppositions. So yeah, I definitely recommend reading this book. Sticking to that theme is the next book, which is 1971, Charge of the Gorkhas and Other Stories. India again went to war in 1971. I haven't read this, but I just wanted to keep the theme going with the Indian Army subject. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Another war that India had to go to. India was at war a lot previously. I'm glad that's not the case anymore. Now that we have these heavy subjects out of the way, I wanted a light read. And this one is pretty popular on Instagram. That's where I discovered this book. It's Lallan Sweets by Shrishti Chaudhary. This book is based in a small town in the 90s India, and that was my initial draw for this book. But after reading, I feel that that is the only draw of this book. The main character's grandfather owns a sweet shop called Lallan Sweets, and now that he's retiring, he has decided to send all his grandchildren on a quest to find out the secret ingredient of his recipe, and whoever finds that secret ingredient is going to inherit the shop. Now this quest could have been amazing, but to be honest, it just did not make sense to me. It kind of put me into a reading slump. The characters were not well developed, and the book heavily relied on just the 90s nostalgia, mentioning some architecture, some food, and just the music. It did try to create an ambience, and to an extent the author succeeded at creating an ambience, but the plot was pretty weak or was just not to my liking. Even the romance felt like a red flag. But yeah, definitely the 90s feel no screens, no internet, no mobile phones. The author could have used that nostalgia to write something super intriguing. But I'm not going to disregard this author completely. There is another book by this author, and I'm going to read that one because I liked her world building. It's just that the plot wasn't to my liking. The next one is I Came Upon a Lighthouse. Now this is the book that I actually should have picked up. I was so scared that after this book I would go into a reading slump. So in the fear and in the hope that I come out of it, I picked up this book, and I'm so glad I did. This is a non-fiction. It's a memoir. The author of this book is Shantanu Naidu. This book is based on his experiences with Ratan Tata. Ratan Tata is a well-known Indian industrialist. He was the owner of Tata Company in India. And I don't think I can do justice talking about what impact Ratan Tata has had on India and the world. He passed away recently, which is a bummer. The world lost a gem. But I couldn't have found this book at a better time, just when I was mourning his loss and felt like I did not know a lot about him just from what I see in the news. I'm glad I picked up this book. The author of this book is a millennial, and he was an automobile design engineer in his early 20s working for the company. He was the fourth generation in the family to work for this company. It is still a legacy in a lot of households to work for that company because it's just the best place to work. His love for animals pushed him to start an initiative, and that initiative caught the eye of Ratan Tata. It says that Ratan Tata himself, known for his compassion for animals, he took note of that initiative, and then he was so impressed that he not only decided to invest in the venture, but over the years he became a mentor, a boss, and an unexpected friendship brew between Shantanu and Mr. Ratan Tata. I was just 4 or 5 chapters into the book and I was already sobbing, and it was happy tears because, oh my god, when I read about older people being sweet to the new generation, it just melts my heart. And it has some lovely illustrations. Look at him, it's Shantanu and Ratan Tata hugging. I think it's a book that I will end up gifting other people. Even if you are not a reader, you should definitely pick this book. You can learn a lot just from less than 200 pages. I rarely reread books, but this is something which I might end up reading again. Moving away from Indian authors, it's one of the books that was on my TBR. This is the third book in the Whimbrel House series. The first one is The Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. I cannot talk a lot about this book without giving away spoilers, but I have mentioned this book and I've reviewed this book on my Instagram channel. I talk a lot about this book already. It's one of my favorite series. This is the third book and the fourth one is coming out pretty soon. The first book was about an enchanted house. So our main character, Merit, he inherits a house and finds out that that house is possessed by a ghost. And then our other main character, Halda, who is the love interest of Merit, is the keeper of enchanted rooms. She is able to tame magical houses. So she visits, and together they try to figure out what is the history and the secret behind that house. And then after that, the series just continues. I love the series so much that I am actually wearing a t-shirt about this series. I am almost there, and then I have the audiobook for the fourth one. The pace is perfect for me. There's not too much happening, an interesting magical system, and it's always in the last 100 pages when everything starts going south. Now, let's talk about the books that I haven't read. This is The Greatest Kashmiri Stories Ever Told. It's a collection of 25 Kashmiri short stories written by various authors. Some of these stories are over 100 years old and some are pretty recent. If you ask any Indian, or if you grew up in an Indian household, the Panchtantra stories were a staple. And the Panchtantra stories were also born in Kashmir. It was initially written in Sanskrit, one of the oldest languages in the world. And it was written somewhere between 100 BC and 500 BC. So it was mainly orally narrated and written in Sanskrit. It's one of the most translated works in the world. Reading short stories is the best way to learn about any culture, people, communities, religion. Also, since these stories span over a time period of 100 years and even more, I think it will be very interesting to see how the landscape, the political landscape or the cultural landscape of Kashmir has changed over generations. The only complaint from this book is the font size. The font size is so tiny. Look at this. This is definitely not a bedtime read for me. Sticking with the Kashmir region, this is another book called Mukhbir. This is in Hindi, and this book is by Sushil Tawar. Now, Kashmir has been unfortunately in a constant state of turmoil every now and then. The author was a colonel in the Indian Army. He served in the army for 26 years, out of which 15 years he spent in Kashmir. And through this book, he has 17 stories to tell about his experience with the local people of Kashmir and what he had to deal with, maybe all the goods and bads of his time in Kashmir. It's a short read, but I'm slower when I read regional languages, so I think this is going to take time. Next, we have Under the Bakul Tree by Mrinal Kalita. It was written in Assamese and it's translated into English by Parth Pratim Goswami. This book won the Bal Sahitya Puraskar in 2021, which is a prestigious award for children's and young adult books. This story is based in Assam, a state in the northeast of India. Ashim is a bright student, a class topper, and everyone's favorite. And Nirmal is his arch rival, and Ashim's popularity doesn't sit well with Nirmal. But one day Ashim stops coming to school, and that surprises everyone. In fact, Nirmal is the most impacted by this news and learns more about Ashim and his situation. And then through this discovery, a journey of friendship begins. This story is all about hope and friendship. Sometimes stories for kids and about kids can teach you a lot, and nothing beats the simplicity of a children's book. So I am looking forward to reading this one. Sticking with regional stories and Assam, the book is by Rashmi Narzari. I hope I'm pronouncing it correct. So the book is called Tales from Assam's Bodo Heartland, Whistles of the Sifung. Bodo is a tribe in Assam. It is a collection of 8 short stories, but it's a mix of fiction and regional folklore, which is again the best way to learn about a culture. The stories explore the idea of friendship, community, and music. The author has drawn inspiration from her personal life and her experience living next to a person who belongs to the Bodo tribe. If I am not mistaken, I tried to do my research, so I'm really looking forward to it. Quickly moving on to the next book is The Extraordinary Life of Max Bulandi by Siddharth Singh. I had no idea about this book. It's not on Instagram, it's not on any social media platform, and I really liked the cover. This is a story that explores India's rock music scene in the 70s, 80s. Now, I know that the world doesn't think of rock when you talk about India, but the Indian rock music scene is pretty solid and interesting. And that is why when I read the plot, I was immediately interested. The main character, Nirvan, is a journalist, and he comes across an article that talks about a rock star called Max Bulandi. The article called him India's answer to Jim Morrison. But the band and the artist suddenly fell off the radar and nobody knows where they are. Nirvan is completely consumed by this article and has now made his life mission to figure out what exactly happened. Yeah, I think this book is the author's way of giving a tribute to the retro rock scene of India through a fictional stories and characters. I have never read anything like this before, so it has all my attention. Sticking with the retro theme, I love this cover. Like it's gorgeous. But before I talk about this book, one thing about me is I love cinema, especially Bollywood. I love Bollywood movies and music. Some movies are cheesy, some are really good, and some are my comfort watch and guilty pleasures. So when I saw this cover and read the plot, I had to get this book. Also, this book is going to be a series. It says Bollywood Saga 1. So I don't know if book 2 is going to be a continuation of this or standalone stories and sticking with the Bollywood theme. I have no idea. The story is set in India during the time of independence and partition. So around from 1945 to 47, and I think after that. The main character is a 16-year-old boy who is living in Lahore, which is now a part of Pakistan, and during the partition he travels to Mumbai. Back then it was called Bombay, and that's the heart of Bollywood. It is his dream to become an actor, and the dream is so strong that he is willing to do anything to fulfill that. Even if that includes working for a crime gang and a dangerous gangster. He is ready to pay any price, and one day, a freak encounter makes his dream come true. The story is about the rise and fall of an Indian movie superstar. If you are like me, who will consume anything Bollywood or cinema, I think this book could be for you, but stay tuned for the review. I have no idea. There were so many books that are not on Instagram, and that is exactly the reason why I wanted to visit a physical store and discover some books offline. Next is Karma by Abhirup Dhar. It's a short read. It's a horror story. I don't read a lot of horror, so and I'm just testing waters with that genre. The book is based in Darjeeling, and I think it's the perfect setup for a horror story. Like house in the misty, foggy hills. I think the author has nailed it with the scene setting. Now it's the story about a 6-year-old boy who has moved into a new home and has nightmares. And his family had to face supernatural disturbances. Then decades later, looks like a couple is now living in the house, and the same thing is happening to the guy again. He is getting nightmares and his life has changed. Now they are trying to escape this house, but they are unable to. Looks like there is a connection between the 6-year-old boy who used to live in this house and the new owner. His name is Karma, and Sakshi lives with him. Now together, Sakshi and Karma are trying to find out like what is the deal with the house and how is he exactly, if he is connected with Ricky. I wouldn't say I have never heard of this plot. I mean, a haunted house is a very low-hanging fruit for readers and for authors, but I'm excited. The next is Chai Time at Cinnamon Garden by Shankari Chandran. This Shankari is an Australian author with Sri Lankan roots. This book is a work of fiction. Through the characters, the author talks about the Sri Lankan Civil War. The characters are residents of Cinnamon Garden Nursing Home in Sydney. The nursing home is a refuge for people of different race, communities and belief, and the beautiful gardens and the hustling kitchen just makes it a perfect home for those residents. But nothing is perfect. Some higher forces are threatening the safe space, and how the residents are going to get affected is the story of this book. I don't know a lot about Sri Lankan Civil War. It's again just something that I have read in the passing, but like I said, no war has happy ending, and the Tamils had to really suffer a lot. There is a huge Sri Lankan Tamil diaspora in Australia, and through this book the author is trying to be a representative. It's a huge book. It's over 350 pages, but then it has glowing reviews. I did not see this on Instagram. I found it when I actively googled some books from India and its neighboring countries. The cover is so gorgeous. It has a typewriter, and then all the illustrations. It's so beautiful. Except this horrible sticker here. The other is Interstellar Mega Chef by Lavanya Lakshmi Narayan. I haven't read anything like this, but it looks like a cooking competition in space. The cover, like the donut, looks delicious. That's all I know about this book. A cooking competition or something like a master chef in the space. And apparently the residents of Earth are primitive because they still cook with fire. So apparently there are different ways of cooking food which doesn't involve fire or heat. So let's see. Again, this is a thick book. It's almost 400 pages. I mean, this was fun. I really liked browsing the shelves and discovering new books because I was tired of the Instagram algorithm just shoving the same books down my throat. And I was done with it. I don't blame the bookstagrammers or booktubers, because when I actively search for it, I find so many book creators talking about books that I have never heard of, but somehow algorithm just picks up the same 10 books and it's all over everyone's feed. So I think Instagram needs to do better. Or for that matter, even YouTube. The last two books, Somewhere Beyond the Sea. This is the second book in the House of the Cerulean Sea series. The first book was adorable. I loved it. It was one of my favorite books of 2023. The book was about an orphanage that houses magical children, and the orphanage was about to close. But then Arthur, who was managing the orphanage, and Linus, who was sent by the magical department to do an audit, they both get together and save that orphanage. Now this is the second book. Arthur and Linus have decided to adopt the children, and a new child is about to get added to this mix. I think that's what the book is about. And the last one is The Naturalist Society. This is a new release. It released, I think, late 2024. It's a fantasy and it is based in the 1880s, where women were not allowed to work in male dominated fields. But our main character Beth is really good in the magic of arcane taxonomy, and because she was not allowed to publish her work, her husband would publish her work under his name. But then when her husband passes away, she is left with no one to look out for her. There are two more characters, so Beth and the other two characters must find a way for Beth to use her talent for the good of the world before she's discovered by those who would lay claim to her rare potential and her very freedom. So yeah, I think it's a race against time. And another book that I got was Operation Bamboo Garden. I don't have it with me right now. It's a very short read. Our main character is an AI expert, and series of mishaps that has happened in the city of Mumbai, and the police department is trying to figure out if these events were isolated or if there is a connection between them. Also, the villain is some mysterious women. I rarely come across thrillers in India that has female villain, and I think this book is going to deliver on that front. And with that, this video comes to an end. This was a long haul. I'm so thirsty. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for some book reviews, and I think the next video that I'm going to publish is my favorite books of 2024. I know we are well into February. February is almost ending, but who cares? I can talk about books whenever I want on my channel. So yeah, stay tuned and I will see you again. Bye.